Sandy, thank you very much. First of all, two small things. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me over to have the possibility to present my European view. And secondly, please excuse my bad English. I'm not a native speaker and, well, I don't have that much practice. Well, trace evidence in Europe. Here it is. Now I got it. I will talk a little bit because I think in Europe right now. Afterwards, I will talk about the European Network of Forensic Science Institutes. Then I will focus on certain sub-disciplines of trace evidence, and I come up with a small conclusion afterwards. Well, first of all, what is Europe? What's the definition of Europe? Well, there's some ideas. Bernard-Henri Lévy said it's not a place, it's an idea. Certainly there are more than hundreds of million ideas, as many as inhabitants. Maybe a better definition is that just look at the geographical borders of Germany, of Europe, and then certainly the idea is that the definition is that the Ural Mountains and the Caucasus Mountains are the geographical barriers and borders. And this is also the Interpol definition, and this definition includes also Russia. So Russia is an integral part of Europe, and also in many institutions also such as the NFC networks, Russia is very present. So there you see, there are the Ural Mountains and there's the Caucasus. Now I'm at the end of my geography lesson. There are about 46 independent states with approximately 680 million inhabitants. 27 of them are members of the European Union with approximately 450 million inhabitants. So it's quite a big and crowded place. Not big, more crowded than big. Then history. It's very important to recall in the current situation what has happened during the last 20 years. In 1989, there was the fall of the Berlin Wall, which ended up later on, or a year later, in the reunification of Germany. Then followed by the collapse of the communist system. The Warsaw Pact system broke down, the Soviet Union collapsed, and at the beginning of the 90s, in 92, there's a Maastricht Treaty, and at that time, the European Union in its existing form was developed. They did it by transferring more power to the central institutions of Europe. And before that, it was the European Community, and afterwards they called it European Union, and there was a drastic change. Then all these countries which were part of the Warsaw Pact country, it was really an unstable situation. Most of them, of course, wanted to become a part of Western Europe, wanted to become an EU member. So there was a very big process and a big transition of these former communist countries to be a part of this Western world and to be part of the European Union. Well, then another issue is the euro got introduced in 2002 in 13 European countries, and then this whole transition process of all these former East or Middle and Eastern Europe countries ended up in the accession of 10 new countries to enter the European Union in 2004. And remember, this is 3 years ago. It's not really history. And then even at the 1st of January, Romania and Bulgaria entered the European Union. So now, which means that the number of countries which are present within the EU almost doubled within 4 years. So to sum it up, there have been a dramatical transition and big changes regarding the political and social issues during the last decade, not only in this former communist country, but also, of course, it has in fact everyday life also in the rest of Europe. And there have been very big efforts in the harmonization and conversion of these institutions of the candidate countries. And a big focus within the European Union is the organization of justice and home affairs, because this is really one of the major critical points of every society. And there have been large amounts of money allocated on this issue from 2000 to 2006. There have been about 14 to 15 billion euros allocated for the transition of this accession candidate countries to enter the European Union. And lots of these is also focused on police consultation and transforming the institution, the police and forensic science institution of these former Warsaw Pact countries to European Union levels. So this is a transition and a changing society, and this certainly is also reflected within the forensic science, and there is the only relevant international or European forensic science network is the European Network of Forensic Science Institute. It's also a very new thing. In '93 there was first informal meeting of a couple of lab directors who thought that it may be good to come together and to network a little bit, which ended up in '95 with the formal establishment of ENFSI. There were about 25 foundation members out of 17 countries, and there was a memorandum of understanding which was extremely loose. It was only to discuss matters of mutual understanding, so it was very loose. And there has been a professionalization and a constitution. I won't focus on that at all, just to give you an idea that right now there are 45 members out of 31 countries active within ENFSI. Of course, the most important needs and issues which are important is the transfer of knowledge from more developed forensic institutions to new members, like new ENFSI members, but of course also new EU members, and a lot of countries are still not within the EU, so there is a further on process going on. The encouragement for all ENFSI laboratories to comply with best practice, and the implementation of a quality management system such as ISO 17025. This is of parasitic importance for ENFSI, and ENFSI membership is closely linked to implement a quality management system. And of course, harmonization and of methods and procedures across Europe is also important. So you have, I will just focus here. That's the heart of ENFSI. It's the 16 expert working groups. The expert working groups are quite similar to the SWIG groups. These are the 16. So you see their DNA is on the top, not because it's that much important, it's in alphabetical order, to be precise. And certainly I won't go through all these working groups, just to give you an idea of what's going on. I just selected a couple of ones that you get an idea of what is happening in the expert working groups and what's relevant. Yes. The European Fiber Group was established in 1993, and as you may recall, ENFSI was established 2 years later, so this working group is older than ENFSI. It was established by Ken Wiggins. I think he's in my grief, and at least Ken is here somewhere. And at that time, there were like 17 labs from 12 countries who were active. Right now. At an annual meeting, there are about 60 to 70 participants in every annual meeting, and I think they are very closely connected also with the SWIG group and also with all other areas of the world who are active in this area. What's of importance is, of course, harmonization. So they came up with a best practice manual for fiber examiners, and these manual is based on the fiber guideline of the SWIGMED group, so there's a good correlation between these two groups, or at least it's very important to get to know what other people in the world are doing and taking the good stuff. They carry out annual exercises for quite a while. They have a good tradition in carrying it out, getting good return rates, so there's it's an important feature. Training young staff is important. So a couple of years ago there was an establishment of young persons fiber workshop, but the attendees, they liked the workshop but they didn't like the name. They didn't want to be called young persons, so they called it to development workshops. These are two-day workshops where very young scientists or young to the field come to a place and then get trained on certain issues. A future project which is of importance to the European Fiber Group is the establishment of a Raman database for dyes, and a very good publication on what really happened within the Fiber Group, and it's also a role model for the other working groups is given in this presentation. stated below. The European Paint Group was established in '97, and I just listed the goals set 10 years ago, and it's quite generic because it's the same goal as almost all working groups have. They want to have collections, they want to have databases on certain spectra or so. They would like to carry on collaborative exercises on issues. The need for standard operation procedures is important in Europe, even though you have so many different legal systems that it's even more important that people know what they are doing, even though there are different needs due to the different law systems. Exchange of information, of course, the coordination of a combined research project, which is usually not working that fine. The major issue certainly is the European collection of automotive paints, which is the European equivalent to the PDQ, which is run by the RCMP, and about 30 laboratories from 23 European countries are active in here, and you gather all different kind of automotive paint samples, either from the paint manufacturers or directly from the car makers, and it's a big international collaboration, so you get stuff directly from the company sent to the BKA, which is doing it. You have federal state labs. In Germany, it's a federal system. So many producers give it directly to the relevant state lab, and they forwarded it to us. Or on a European level, also the people from Belgium collect the stuff from the plants in their area and forward it. And you get also other sources of this stuff. Coming to the BKA. Then the samples get listed, prepared, and then the investigation, like FTIR measurements, are carried out in 3 places, which is the Gendarmerie in Paris, so French laboratory, also in our lab in Wiesbaden, Germany, and the Berlin Crime Lab is doing it. And it all ended up in a database which was then compiled on an annual basis, and the CD was burned and sent out to 50 crime labs in Europe with the most updated information on automotive paints, including the FTIR measurements. And one set of these samples is then sent to the PDQ lab, to RCMP in Canada, a set of the physical samples and also, of course, the database by itself. This is a kind of old organizational chart. Now in the future, or actually since last year, the French are working on a more web-based application, so they are much more active now, and it's not everything of the work is based in Germany. It's the French are doing also a very good job, and next year there'll be summer courses planned for the application of these databases. Then in '95, there was a glass subgroup established within the European Paint and Glass Group. Okay, before it was a paint group, now it's the Paint and Glass Group. And main focus again, annual collaborative exercises on refractive index. A couple of years ago, everybody was taking part on CTS tests, but many European labs were very unsatisfied with the performance and the layout, so we decided to come up with our own collaborative exercise. Either for refractive index measurements and for elemental analysis. Best practice guidelines, they're supposed to be finalized at the end of the year. They'll be out, and we're looking, of course, of common standard materials with a very homogeneous properties, which everybody in Europe is using, so that you have external standards. So with every collaborative exercise, you see how people are doing on these standards. Education and training, of course, is in every working group of importance. Interpretation issues, other issues on new technology, and the latest one was in the Czech Republic last year on quantitative analysis. There's a new subgroup formed 2 years ago. It's called Tapes and Security Dies, dealing with these kinds, like the stated materials, and based on an adhesive tape database which was established in the BKA a couple of years ago. Now we are trying to make it on a European basis, get material from European origin. It's as I stated, an IR spectra library. You have properties to get an idea where does this material comes from and how often be cured. Future activities or activities which started this year is the focus on security dyes. The euro, as I said, has been introduced to 13 countries. In a couple of years, a couple of more countries will enter the eurozone. So these security dyes is of very high importance. So it's the question what kind of tags are in there, and I want to come up with a database with picture of banknotes and all these stated issues. The Marx working group, Marx is not really a trace evidence, but I think it's important to state that at this group, they carried out a lot of collaborative exercises in shoe print identification, and they realized that they ran into big problems by interpreting these collaborative exercises, because they got results from numerous laboratories from Europe, and the interpretation was completely different. So they had a problem interpreting it, because everybody had different wording, different kind of conclusions. So they said we have to have a conclusion scale which can be applied to everybody. Then there was, a couple of years ago, it was quite fierce, a battle between the Bayesian, or the people who are in favor of the Bayesian approach, and the traditionalists. This was a very, very strong argumentation, not only in the Marx group, also in almost any other group. And so therefore, they came up here with a 6-level conclusion scale, and then also with a translation. What does this mean? What does this mean for a Bayesian approach, and what does it mean for a classical approach? And there have been a couple of publications on these issues. Some features now moving away from the working groups, focusing on technology. A scanning electron microscope is certainly a backbone of most of the forensic science laboratories. New developments is the environmental SEM, so no coating is necessary. This certainly makes life easier. And another application which is certainly won't be in the future in every laboratory is the SEM with a focused ion beam. It's quite expensive technique, but you can really manipulate your material. You can produce new cross-section and can look at it. We used it in a couple of issues. It's, for example, one was microchip manipulation. There was it's a chip used in an anti-theft device for automobiles, and we had to override the security circuit, and it was really helpful having this focused ion beam. At first, drilling a hole to a certain layer, which we had to achieve to override this the security lock, and then putting a conductive material to short circuit this area, and this was both done by the focused ion beam, and it's a handy thing also for looking at cross sections and nano layers of certain pigments. You can see this is a cross section, and then you just cut it through with your ion beam, and then you have a quite good look at it if you have a good SEM. So this is certainly technology is doing something. Raman spectroscopy, despite its complexity, there's a renaissance of Raman spectroscopy. It has a growing number of applications. Certainly there are similar applications in the past, but the frequency is higher. It's a complicated technique, to put it this way, and you have to have dedicated persons, so it's a kind of specialization in this direction. But we in our lab use it almost on every paint case where we can get a hand on. Laser ablation ICP-MS is an approaching technique. It has been stated before, and there'll be talks about it later on. DNA, ICDNA as part of trace evidence. So I will just present some work on it also, and ongoing databases activities. Databases are very much of importance, and even to get a database updated is a big effort. So this can't be underestimated. And well, there was a case which by the investigation of biological material certainly is biological materials trace evidence, so therefore I will present it shortly. It was an unsolved homicide, and there was trace material from a trunk of a suspect car, and he said he has never been there, and all which was found was like this certain oak here, and the question was, does the leaf originate from the tree of the location of the corpse? So they just sampled all the different trees around this area, and they used a certain marker set which is used in forest research to have a look at plant diversification, and with this marker set they got a very good discriminants, and they found a quite good match with one of the trees right here, which was pretty close to the position of the corpse. So to sum up, there have been major political and social changes during the last decade, which are still affecting the way we are working and the way we will work in the future. Quality management is the big issue of the future in Europe. And well, the expert working groups is the place where most of the activities concerning trace evidence is going on. And the interpretation of the results in the future will receive much more attention than it did beforehand, and especially concerning ISO 17020 accreditation, which is a problematic area, to put it this way, and this certainly will be of importance in the future. I would like to thank Cornelia Nese from the Berlin Lab, Knut Endre, who is present, I think, from Norway, my colleagues from the BKA, and of course wikipedia.org, and certainly you for the attention. Thank you very much.